time. Now, okay, hey, here we are, y'all. Not sure I got everything set right. Man, I'm so stupid about computers, and I followed the instructions, so I'm not sure I got the bar button set. Anyways, regardless, here we are live, and we're going to look at the mother of all conspiracies, the JFK assassination. And as what I'm doing here, I've got my notepad. Where's my pen? There it is. And as what I'm doing is I'm going to be taking some notes along the way. Now, I'm not completely ignorant of what it is about this. I mean, but there's so many different theories now, right? There's as many JFK theories is a combination of all the other theories involving conspiracy and actual facts. So there's quite a lot. So I'm going to be asking Chuck. This is the Ochelli effect, my guest here, and a very good friend for quite a long time. He produced my show, What Matters Worldwide, over at UCY.tv, and it's been a really great friend along the way. We've been involved quite. Matter of fact, Chuck is, I would say, as far as my connecting voices, the social networking and so forth of people in media that I count as good, solid people, and is the pinnacle of my success in having utilized that connections that I've made available. That's Chuck Ochelli, and a good friend. I count him there for being there about, hey, he knows what matters worldwide. So welcome, Chuck Ochelli.
Listen, thanks a lot, Vince. I appreciate you having me on. And, yeah, absolutely. The great skill you have, it may not necessarily always be with the technology, but the great skill you have is bringing people together of like minds, bringing people together of, similar interests and stuff like that. That's really what your unsung skill is, as far as I'm concerned, because you do radio shows, and yeah, we did a few of those, What Matters Worldwide together. I had you on my show sometimes. We've done a couple other things, and it's always been fun. And yeah, a lot of the stuff that actually is on the Ochelli effect has its roots with stuff that was put together by Vince by simply introducing me to people and getting us together. So what else can I say about that?
Hey, by the way, Grimner says, yes, we are here, so I must have done it right. Thanks, Grim. For me, Ralph Epperson is an amazing person, historian and author, lecturer, and he was really right there in the very beginning of my becoming aware of how the world works, and so I listened to an archive of you, Mr. Epperson, and I heard you give me the thanks for the introduction, and I was all like, man, see that right there, that's why I do what I do, because when we're bringing people's voices together, that's what I subnamed myself there, is connecting voices, and I think that's really important that we can do that. And this right here today, because there are so many different theories, and when people have their pet theory, then it owns them. They think they own it, but they're actually owned by that. So I want to, as I said, I want to take some notes because I want to be asking questions of Chuck. What some of these different theories are, and then at the end we'll sort through that, because this is, by the way, the blind JFK researcher, Chuck Ochelli, the Ochelli effect, and he's heard worldwide. So,
well, that show is actually on American Freedom Radio. As of right now, it's on American Freedom Radio 3 nights a week, but who knows what 2016 will hold. A lot of changes coming up. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to the JFK assassination, yeah, it is where the conspiracy theory culture that we see today is rooted. It is the absolute beginning of it all. It is where the phrase conspiracy theory was first uttered in public, and there, with good reason. We have a cottage industry that sort of sprouted up after a guy named Mark Lane put out a book called Rush to Judgment, right? And ever after, I assure you of this without any sort of doubt, that there is no event in history that was that brief that has been more prolifically written about. It is extremely voluminous in the literary field. There are an endless litany of documentaries about it, and we are 52 years deep without a clear and concise answer in a definitive sense about the assassination, right? We have 3 formal, government panels which were dedicated to, illuminating the truth about this situation, about this anywhere from 6 to 10 seconds in Dallas that really did change the world on November 22nd, 1963. And when I say we have 3 major government investigations and a slew, an endless, countless amount of private investigations, 1 attempted prosecution in public, this is what it amounts to. The Warren Commission, the House Select Committee on Assassinations in the 1970s, and, our friendly Assassination Records Review Board, which declassified a whole bunch of documents, about 5 million in total, and dumped them into the National Archives. That's the official investigations outside of the New Orleans District Attorney, Jim Garrison, who attempted to prosecute a man named Clay Shaw for conspiracy in the assassination in the late 60s. That prosecution failed and is most famously, memorialized in the movie JFK by Oliver Stone. This is what we have to work with as far as the mainstream goes. That's about it. When it comes to the alternative, and I do mean the underground, there has been monographs, simple mimeograph things that people have put out, the work of Mae Brussel on radio, the work of Bill Cooper on radio, the work of, again, countless independent filmmakers who have attempted on an international level to investigate, to demonstrate different theories all over the place. And where do they begin? Well, like I said, they begin immediately, almost on that very day, the concept that it may have been a communist conspiracy, the whispers in Texas that Lyndon Johnson was immediately, the culprit when it came down to arranging for the assassination of the president so that he could succeed him. Things like this. Immediately, within 24 hours this happened, and it was exacerbated when Lee Harvey Oswald was murdered publicly, which, to the best of my knowledge, was the first time that a human being was murdered on live television, when Jack Ruby pumped a shot into his gut, and he died subsequently at Parkland Hospital. And that was only 2 days after the earth-shaking event of the assassination. While in police custody with more than 70 officers, and 2 of them, in fact, cuffed to each side of Oswald, live on television. But, hey, who's counting? So here we go, right? And ever after, like I said, these things have evolved over the years, and it's fascinating to even study just what has happened to the conspiracy theories. Most of them, the majority of them, just like the majority of the official story, end up being without basis or with very little basis as we look into them over time. Now, before anybody gets the idea that I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, do not be fooled. I am not asleep or high enough at any point in my life to buy that particular line of BS, folks. Okay? But it doesn't mean that I have to adopt any of these other fictitious stories to replace the original fiction. And, just because I'm not watching the shadow puppets on the wall of the cave doesn't mean that the Muppets are any more real as far as life goes, right? So, what do you want to get into, Vince? We could go 100 different directions with this because, again, half a century's worth of history. On the assassination, the real research, the garbage, the disinformation, the misunderstandings, we could go any way you want.
Okay, well, I'll start with my short notes that I've taken so far in a short recap. So the theories began with the word conspiracy theory being coined, and any number of theories began on that day, birthing the mother of all conspiracies. So You spoke of Mark Lane, and then let me interject real quick, but we'll come back to that. I just real quickly answer. I think that you have an upcoming interview with the author of The Case Against LBJ. Is that correct? Mike Calapitro?
No, not him. I'm actually talking to Roger Stone, who also is of the opinion that LBJ was. I don't think it was his book that called him the mastermind, but essentially, let's just go with it this way. There's a group of individuals that believe that the vice president who succeeded John F. Kennedy is the mastermind behind the assassination, in essence. Roger Stone is one of them, but of course he has a much more interesting and diverse history than that. The primary topic when I talk to him on Tuesday will be about his new book, which is about the Clintons and what he coins as their war on women. But I somehow feel as though the JFK thing might come up during the conversation, not to mention the fact that he was recently dismissed from the Trump presidential campaign. And if we go a little further back in history, we also realize that this is one of the guys who was helping to be a muckraker for Richard Nixon. So Roger Stone is an interesting political insider who has been part of the game for quite a while, and one of the things that he's done has been to write about the JFK assassination as well. Mm-hmm.
Great. So most people's opinion about JFK has been formulated, of course, by Ollie in his production for Hollywood. There is so many, as I said, there are so many different theories about this. Now, let me go on with Oswald as the first murder on TV. Now, from that, I have seen in the past that supposedly that was all a ruse, that the Ruby ruse, as I will now call it, that he did not actually shoot him.
Well, being that I wasn't there personally, physically, I could not with absolute certainty say that he wasn't shot. However, it would be amazing to me if this guy was not shot. I've spoken to a surgeon who worked on him, literally gotten the details about the fact that, air escaped at certain times when they attempted to do emergency surgery on him. In fact, spoken to people who explained to me that they had an auxiliary person on loan to City Hall from the hospital who quite idiotically turned around and tried to perform CPR on Oswald after he was shot. If this is a complete fiction, it is one of the most amazing and in-depth ones ever created, and it would involve hundreds of actors and people lying over the years at a bare minimum. So I don't think that there's any way that it didn't happen. To a reasonable certainty, I would say that it's way too complex to have been staged. Now, that being said, it's still a bizarre situation because it was a gut shot that went wrong. Again, if somebody didn't try and pump up and down on this guy's chest with a gut shot, I mean, just think about that from a practical sense. He may not have died. Is this the way that an assassin kills an individual? Generally speaking, no. You wouldn't shoot him in the gut. But look, either way, I happen to assume that it did happen. To go in that other direction seems, look, after a while we can say that the entire world outside of what's in front of your very face is a fiction and it's a construct in and of itself. But hey, that's a different conversation. That's right.
Yeah. So give me that doctor's name again that you said that worked on Oswald there.
Oh, geez. I've spoken to so many of these guys from Parkland. I would have to go back to my notes to remember if it was some of the very same doctors that worked on Kennedy worked on Oswald, so it gets a little confusing. Charles Crenshaw is somebody who was present at both of these situations. In fact, told me that they purposely put him in a different trauma room there at Parkland Hospital because they thought it was distasteful to treat him in the very same room that the president had died in. Okay, stuff like that. Pepper Johnson was another guy. One of the more interesting fellows, I would say, would be I do believe was present at both, but a lot of different people were present in both situations. There were guys that were neurosurgeons that were there for Kennedy that were not there for Oswald because he wasn't shot in the brain.
So that brings a very interesting topic to bear then, all these theories on Kennedy's corpse and it being switched and all sorts of other things like the bullets and so forth being placed at the scene and so forth. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, sure. A lot of that is born out of what I call the best evidence set of theories, and that's because there was a book by a man named David Lipton, who was actually one of the very early researchers on the case, who wrote about the possibility of body alteration, dealing from the premise that there was a different account of the wounds that were seen on Kennedy's body at Parkland Hospital, which is the hospital in Texas, and then the body was illegally flown to Bethesda Medical Center in Maryland, where, Navy doctors, with the assistance of one Army doctor, turned around and performed what would be the medical autopsy of John F. Kennedy, and their accounts of the wounds on the very same body differ quite a bit. Is there a reason to believe that the body was altered? Now, I would definitively say, yes, there's a reason to believe that the body was altered. Now, the theories that it was altered kind of in transit and that there was some sort of ghoulish surgery while the body was on what was still technically Air Force One, because it's only Air Force One when the president boards it, but because Lyndon Johnson automatically became president upon Kennedy's death, and he was present on the plane, it's still Air Force One, even with both presidents literally aboard, while Kennedy's casket was in the back and Johnson was toward the front. Some people believe that there was an impromptu surgery done there to obscure and to abscond with evidence, and et cetera, et cetera. But that being the case, I don't believe in that. However, there is evidence from morticians like Mr. Robinson, who, let me think now, which funeral home did he work for? Gawler's was the original one, and then there was another one brought in from the D.C. area in order to repair it for the possibility of an open casket, which, by the way, they decided on a closed casket for his laying in state and all of that. But they did try to prepare him for it, and there was a mortician's assistant who sat there and literally watched one of the doctors sort of toying with the body before the proper legal autopsy, the official autopsy began. So I think that that's a possibility. However, if they were going to get some very skilled surgeons and they were going to get somebody who was going to be involved in a medical cover-up to do the surgery that was going to destroy evidence, they could have picked much, much better people, because quite literally the resulting medical legal autopsy that exists in the National Archives today is, without question, unanimously by any forensic pathologist that has ever examined it, literally described as the exemplar of what not to do during a medical legal autopsy. Okay, now I know that's a mouthful, but the fact is, let's just put it in real simple terms. If you're going to cover up stuff like this, you would use people that have a little more skill, and you would use people to cover it up properly. So I think that there's a lot of ineptness that went on here, but there is cover-up all over this case, and the autopsy is definitely part of it. So there you go.
Right. I'm going to come up to a story here in just a moment that was posted from a friend of mine down in Australia who died. And Dave Drift, he's got some farming down there. He uses the permaculture method. My mind is blank there. But anyway, so at this moment, however, I would like to interrupt the regularly scheduled broadcast for the 420 report. And if you're on World Truth, go back there and see that right there where I posted. I'm all about the green agenda. So it is now 420 somewhere. Puff, puff, pass. And that has been your message from those people.
Sounds good. And now you can hear my lighter.
Yes. And remember, cannabis can.
Smoking makes your lungs black.
Oh, that's nice.
That's all right. Between the cigarettes, the chemtrails, and God knows whatever else are particulates in the air, we can let it join it. Okay.
Look at that. Well, that was dandy. That was better than cotton candy out there, didn't it?
All right. So, returning to the conversation.
Yeah. And this comes from the Australian.com and says a retired Australian detective believes he is a youth.
Good. That was good.
And Australian accent. All right, Mike. But anyways, he believes the U.S. Secret Service officer fired one of the bullets that felled U.S. President John F. Kennedy. So, on this day, weeks before the 50th anniversary of JFK's assassination, cable channel, Reels channel, will broadcast a documentary that suggests the president was accidentally shot by a Secret Service agent. JFK, the smoking gun, is based on the work of retired Australian Detective Colin McLaurin and the book Mortal Error. The shot that killed JFK by Barnard Meany. Sure. It goes on to say that.
Listen, Vince. Let me cut you off here, please. First of all, let's. All right. The Secret Service agent. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. If you really want to, go ahead.
Yes, this is the most important part. Besides the fact that it was going to be on TV, we know it's going to be true. Secondly, because the Warren Commission report in the 1960s concluded that Oswald was the lone gunman and officially explaining. He's got some more explaining to do. The assassination. So with that, I turn it back to you now. Now take that whip out and split that shit, because I have to almost not laugh reading that.
Okay, this whole theory in a nutshell is this: that a Secret Service agent in a follow-up car picks up an AR-15 and accidentally pops off a round that blows Kennedy's head apart. The Secret Service has ever after sought to cover it up, and that explains the legal medical evidence. Okay, that's the theory in a nutshell, and McLaren has only turned around and resurrected. He did this right around the 50th anniversary, and it was one of the things that really irritated the hell out of me. The bottom line is that the Menninger book was completely discredited. Now, why do I say that? Well, the Secret Service agent that this was pinned on in this scenario actually took the author of that book to court and won. Okay, for, slanderous, libelous, ridiculous things being stated about them. So, it's always good to wait till these guys are dead to make up stories about them. A la Judy Baker. But back to that later. The thing is that this thing is absolutely ridiculous. And he had the help of a guy named Howard Donahue, who was, quite honestly, an expert shot, a guy who understood ballistics and everything else. But they're working off of, number one, outdated forensic techniques. For instance, beveling and bone is no longer seen as the definitive proof of directionality when it comes to determining a shot, et cetera, et cetera. Secondly, people like Menninger, McLaren, all of these guys are working off of very poor copies of X-rays that in some cases may or may not have come from the original set, et cetera, et cetera. It's completely foundless. It's one of these things that absolutely didn't happen, and it's almost as ridiculous as the Secret Service driver having shot him. Thank you, Bill Cooper, for your bad copy of the Zapruder film where you try and show us that that's the reality. But anyway, and that's not to completely trample all over Bill Cooper's grave, but when it came to JFK, God, no good, guys. The Secret Service people didn't kill him. Now, all of that having been said, the Secret Service definitely is culpable here. Not because they murdered him directly, but because they did a poor job of protecting the president. They violated all of their own standards for protection during this motorcade. The turn itself, the speed of the limousine, the positioning of the agents, The fact that, guess what, folks, they were actually hung over, a bunch of them, from drinking until 4 a.m., and then they rejoined the president, at least after 4 a.m., at the Fort Worth Hotel where he departed from. So if you're drinking until 4 and you're up until the next day and you're part of the protection, you might be a little slowed down by the time noon comes around. And they were. And this is why these guys didn't move correctly. This is why these guys were doing a bad job. But they were doing a bad job all the way around that day anyway. So if you want to talk about complicity, it's in that they didn't really do their jobs. They didn't really try to do anything. The only person visibly making the move that looks like they were even making an attempt when the threat was apparent, is Clint Hill. And this guy was Jackie's Secret Service agent. This is the guy who most famously runs up, jumps on the back of the limo, and gets in there and throws himself over everybody after the fact. But notice, again, the only Secret Service agent who attempted to do his own job. Okay. Anyway, all of that stuff is wholly ridiculous, and that book Mortal Error is laughable if you understand the case. It's interesting to point out that there's inconsistencies again in the medical legal evidence. It's interesting to point out that that's a mess. It's interesting to point out that the Secret Service was criminally negligent, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as anybody who was really examining this thing as an impartial observer. You could say that they were criminally negligent, but to actually put a gun in somebody's hand who was working for the Secret Service and have them pull the trigger is laughable at best.
Hey, Sumner's joined us at the Real Liberty Media chat. And I'm over here side by side with UCY Open as well. So, hey, welcome all the listeners from Yonder over here, and Walter. He says, good to hear you, Chuck.
Absolutely, always good to hear from Walter. The souvenir event still playing on Saturdays, right, Vince?
That's right, Saturdays at 4 p.m. in Holland and in Denmark, and that's where Flash is at, Denmark, my co-captain. Back here in the background. So, yeah, I appreciate what he's doing, and also, Sir, she's such wonderful help. Shout out to Grammy Marion Grimner and Jules over at UCY. So, anyways, what I'm doing here today with the JFK topic is looking at categorizing the different theories involved. I know a lot of people have gone through this or feel they have gone through it thoroughly, and like I said, for me, what I do for a learning process for myself. This is me doing radio is me looking at topics and not always necessarily thinking that I have the answers, but mostly the questions. So, as I say, this being the mother of all conspiracies. I think, so like I said, some people may have the all of it, but I think most people do not. And like I said, they are, most people are owned by the theories that they hold so dear to themselves and how things is in the world.
Well, right. But, you know what's interesting about that, Vince, and I've noted something over the past few years especially, is that when you see the type of conspiracy theory or lack thereof that somebody gravitates towards, it usually tells you a lot more about that individual, in all honesty, than it does about the theory itself. People that really want to distrust somebody like Lyndon Johnson will gravitate toward that. People that want to believe that, the mob is powerful enough to pull off the assassination will gravitate toward that. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just like looking at the Zapruder film, I literally had a guy recently who is, for the most part, extremely intelligent, wonderful guy to talk to. I have him on my show a couple of times, and off the air, he begins to tell me that he believes that John Connally shot JFK. Okay?
The governor?
The governor is sitting in the front seat, Annie Oakley style, reaches under his arm and pops Kennedy in the face right there from the seat in front of him. Literally, that was the theory given to me with a straight face, and I was just like, wow. Listen,
how did he shoot himself?
Well, that is a good question. Did he shoot himself before or after he, delivered the coup de grace to Kennedy's skull?
And who is this guy? Who is this guy? You said?
Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna identify him directly, but he's actually a nice guy, and at some point it might actually come up on my show because I might have him back on just to really hammer this out with him. And you know why I do this though, Vince? Because I spent time, and I spent more than 2 decades looking at this, examining different theories. I chased down things ranging from French gunmen, the French connection gunmen that they had, the Marseille organized crime guys that had made allegations about being part of the assassination. And quite honestly, there were people that were, school teachers and college professors and stuff like that were too afraid to go and talk to certain mob figures to get inside information about where people were and what was going on in 1963. And I never had any problem about going to a prison and sitting down with somebody. Plus, I had access to certain people, so because they were fearful to be, say, sitting inches away from somebody who, clearly has a large body count under their belt, I got sent to go and talk to some of these guys personally. And what you have at the end of the day is a lot of theories that you could chase around. You could spend half a lifetime going through it, but there is over 1,000 mainstream publishers. Books out there that you could read, the smallest of which is probably 300 pages long. Some of these books go up to 2,000 pages, all the way up to like Walt Brown, who wrote a chronology on this, which is 30,000 pages long. And there's well over 1,000 books published that way. There are at least 5, 6, maybe even 800 publications in the underground venue on paper. This is just your reading material, not to mention a minimum of 500 documentaries that I can count on the assassination. All of this stuff having been produced in the course of a half century, once again, you can easily get confused and misled. And honestly, the only reason why I spend the time to debunk some of this stuff is to try and get people that really care about getting at the real information to not waste their time. But you know what? If you'd like to sit and examine it or spend 20, 30, 40 years on it, have at it. What can I say?
Right. Now, Flash asked who paid for it, which, of course, it didn't take you in any number of directions, depending on what rabbit trail you're on. But, and then also Grimner says, couldn't tell you who did the actual shooting, but the why is very obvious, and that's executive order. I mean, how many ones is this?
That's 4 ones and a 0. You know what? The problem there, Grimner, and I really wish I could believe in that theory because it makes perfect sense with the rest of my worldview. But the thing is, if you read that executive order and you understand that what Kennedy did with that executive order was effectively turn over a pre-existing mechanism, which in a video myself I proved that mechanism existed, 30 years before Kennedy ever took office. He turned over the right to control the amount of those U.S. notes to somebody else. And they continued to be printed all the way to 1971 when the mechanism became irrelevant because Nixon eliminated the very last vestiges of us being part of the gold standard. It's out of context, and it's a part of patriot mythology. And look, don't believe me. If you like, you can check with a guy like G. Edward Griffin, who wrote, The Preacher from Jekyll Island, who I interviewed, who is definitely seen as an authority on the Federal Reserve. Check with something, I think the article is called JFK Mythology. He wrote it in the year 2000, totally debunking this theory by explaining to you how that executive order worked, putting it in context with the repeal of the Silver Purchase Act during that very same year, and explaining to you the mechanism by which the U.S. notes function. Okay? So, again, it's one of those things that I'd like to believe, and there's plenty of these theories I'd like to believe. But the problem is that when you really examine their foundation, they fall apart. And I wish I could believe that executive order was the why as to why it was taken out. If you want to look for things that are more relevant about why it was taken out, how about we look at National Security Action Memorandum 263. 263 was an order to withdraw from Vietnam. Withdraw from Vietnam. Okay? And it would have had every every personnel from the United States withdrawn from Vietnam by the end of calendar year 1965.
Chuck, let me interrupt you for just a second. First of all, hey, Barry Prince listening right now, asking if there's a chat room, and there is. If you'll go to reallibertymedia.com, that'll bring you right up there, and you'll see you can enter anonymous, or you can backslash over that and type in the name that you'd like to go under. So, come on in. Welcome into the conversation. And, welcome everybody listening here. And downstream, when I get this worked out as a non-technotard guy, a non-technocrat, being a technotard, you can't check that. Anyway.
Well, you wouldn't want to be a technocrat anyway.
Technotard, that's what I call I did this a couple of years back now. The Ochelli Tongue-Tied Award effect. Yes, you always would get.
That's the inside joke. You're breaking up a little bit, Vince, but that's the inside joke for my listeners on my show. I always say, listen, if you keep the score at home, I've only tripped on my tongue one time today, so I still owe you two more. That's usually how I deal with it. Look, I'm not always the best speaker in the world. I try to pull things together as fast as possible and not be so wordy, but hey, I fail at that. I'm a talk show host, so I guess I like to talk. But anyway, sorry, Vince. Go ahead.
Oh, man. I'm terrible. So, hey, here's a question from chat. That's at reallibertymedia.com. Juanatalco says, could the why also have been JFK's rejection of Operation Northwood? Was there a military mafia connection?
Now, there you have something that I can definitely appreciate. Like I was saying about that National Security Action Memorandum, the removal of troops from Vietnam would have cost a lot of money for the people that were banking on that for the next little while. Kennedy had already denied the military-industrial complex the prize of Cuba, because if we had invaded Cuba, there would have been plenty of money to be made, not just in, moving military troops, but all of the support that goes into it, the building of things like, barracks, the building of weapons, the building of the creation of or the manufacture of all of the equipment necessary, helicopters, uniforms, the meals, all of that stuff. Somebody makes money on that, folks. So here's the thing. Kennedy refused to invade Cuba despite the Cuban Missile Crisis the year before, didn't he? Kennedy refused to go into Laos when being pushed to go and do that. Kennedy's involvement in different things that went on the continent of Africa at that time, which he could have very easily brought about, various military involvement. All of that stuff was big bank for those involved in the military-industrial complex. So they had a grudge. And then him denying them the over a decade-long involvement in Vietnam, which did result after his assassination and was immediately put into action by the Johnson regime that came in. Johnson immediately played ball with National Security Action Memorandum 273, which is where we saw the immediate acceleration and the disaster of Vietnam, which led to 58,000 dead Americans, 1.5 million to 4 million dead Vietnamese, and a hell of a lot of piles of money being made for people who profit from war. So, that is an absolutely great avenue to look at as far as the why goes. Is there other answers? Sure. Was Kennedy also embattled with the Federal Reserve? Yes, but not through that executive order. There were other things he was looking to do. Okay, and you got to look at a name to look at there. Research this guy named James Saxton, and good Lord, this guy Donald, I can't remember his last name, but he wrote a book called Battling with Wall Street. Kennedy Battling with Wall Street. And that book right there gives you a good inkling about how he was pissing off people that were big industrialists. I mean, most famously and most publicly having gone after U.S. Steel during his administration. He turns around and breaks a strike and makes people go back to work for less money because the steel industry was crying poverty. The steel industry, in answer to that, turns around and raises their prices, which was a big deal at that time. Kennedy turned around and threatened to turn the entire government against the steel industry for screwing them. And, they were none too happy with that. U.S. Steel had to back down. He was definitely not somebody that big money was happy with. He was definitely not somebody the bankers were happy with. He was definitely not somebody the military-industrial complex was happy with. And even worse, he had really pissed off the intelligence community. So, all of those things are valid avenues.
Lots and lots of possibilities, aren't there? Let me back up just a moment here to the memorandum. Tell me what that title is. 263. The memorandum what? Or what memorandum?
It's National Security Action Memorandum 263. That's the best way to find it. You can find it referenced in a lot of places. And if you go ahead and look at there's a proper presidential archives where you can get a hold of the executive orders, which, by the way, read Executive Order 11110. Please understand that it's actually the augmentation of earlier Executive Order number 11028, I think it is, which when you put the two of them together, you actually understand what happened and what the mechanism is that's being introduced there. And it's not about printing silver certificates. They have constitutional money. It's convoluted with the idea of like Lincoln and the Greenback. It's a wholly different issue. Lincoln and the Greenback, there you have a valid issue as far as really directly challenging the concept of a centralized bank by printing money that they weren't going to profit from. But Kennedy's effect on the U.S. note and the control of that particular currency based on the amount of silver which is supposed to be on hold in the Federal Reserve banks is a different issue, and when you break it down and you get into the actual documentation on it, it's not supportable. However, the whole thing with Lincoln and the Greenback, very supportable. Okay. So, yep.
Let me literally and figuratively turn the page. Or perhaps actually turn the page back. And then for more notes about, let's hear about Judith Baker. You mentioned her earlier. What does she have to contribute?
Okay. Judith Baker, somebody who's very popular in the alternative stream, somebody that has a story that, here's an admission you don't get out of me very often. I'd love to believe it. However, the problem is you have a high school student being entrusted with a cancer weapon that is so covert, so outrageous, and being utilized against international leaders and things like this that it just falls apart. If you talk to anybody who worked in that kind of field at that time, somebody who's well studied in it, they'll tell you that that entire line of reasoning is just ridiculous. It's like imagining that you have a skilled shooter at the age of 5, and you're going to choose a 5-year-old as an assassin for a major world figure and expect it to be pulled off. It doesn't matter about the skill level. That's just a ridiculous thing to do. So you have that aspect of it. Then you have her entire relationship, which she claims to have had with Lee Harvey Oswald. Here is what is provable. she did work at one of the very same places that Lee Harvey Oswald worked at in New Orleans at the time she claims to have had a relationship with him. Anything else that is an assertion by her or by her supporters after that, when one examines it, appears to fall completely apart. What she has is one alleged witness that nobody else can speak to or find that was the wife of someone who was peripherally involved with Oswald's life, who claims that they went on a double date with her. Outside of that, people who have interviewed individuals in New Orleans who were provably in Oswald's sphere at that time, not a single one accounts for Baker having existed in Oswald's life, etc., etc., etc. Even when you take a look at jobs that she alleges to have held with Oswald off the books somewhere, she claims to be working in a black neighborhood, with Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, basically, there would be the only two white people showing up in a neighborhood to go ahead and work with a black man in 1960s New Orleans. Hello, you think nobody would have taken note of that? Okay, not to mention the fact that he would have been in all sorts of violation of laws, like at that time he actually had to have separate bathroom facilities for white people and black people in order to employ them in any way, shape, or form. Stuff like that, left and right. She was given money and given all sorts of covert assistance from CIA people. She claims to have met just about every pivotal figure in the case, and over time her story has evolved to include everything from the Lyndon Johnson conspiracy on down to, James Files might have a point, on down to, I also knew mob figures who let us have telephone communications in a secretive way, despite the fact that she described something that didn't really exist at the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, what you have is a fairly creative work of fiction that surrounds some of the case that seems to involve a bunch of things that have emerged in the research community, but at the end of the day, any serious researcher on the case is not going to take her account seriously.
Well, I wonder, did she actually trace it back to any kind of connection between Hitler, reptilians, and hollow Nazi Earth base?
No, but if you get her on sometime, Vince, I bet she will. Give her a chance, because she'll go to the SV40 virus, she'll go to monkeys, AIDS, cancer, you name it. If you bring her on, she'll somehow fold herself into it if you give her a chance. So, bring her on, brother.
And thank you, Beth Z. She's supposed to be at Battling Wall Street, the Kennedy Presidency by Donald E. Gibson.
Yes, Gibson, that was the name I was looking for. Like I said, Donald, I know he wrote it, and that was a really good book, actually. I think it's been reissued recently. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like you can get it for $10 for paperback. And Barry Puzzle has made it into chat. How'd he do? Now, Barry's going to be on with me this week, and I need to get with him, and we're going to iron out a little of, I guess, some of these ripples in the universe. And so we're running a special all week here in noon Central at World Truth, Real Liberty Media. Some special guests, bringing them in with some discussion on topics that they'd like to discuss. Anyways, now, where am I at? Completely run amok. I've lost any okay. Well, yeah.
I run my mouth too much, Vince. It's all right.
No, I was trying to catch up with everything, and then I came to a blank page. So I left off with copying down the things to Beth here. You've had several people on with you and with differing opinions. Let's see if we can just make a short list real quick without a lot of commentary as to the differing theories about JFK.
Okay, you want the good stuff or the bad stuff? Vince? Just pick that and I'll go.
Go with the good stuff right off the bat. And I'll probably have to go back to, if I can't keep up my notes here, I'll go back in the listen and add this up. So this is going to be my actual first project when we're done here to get this YouTube going over here to worldtruth.org YouTube, the Instagram, and he's given me a link to help me accommodate that. He's like Jules. He's like, here, do it, and that's the expectations, and I can appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, give it a shot. Well, here's the best stuff that I can think of that I've had on the show so far. I've had Dr. Ernst Titovitz, who was actually a friend of Lee Harvey Oswald's while he defected to Russia, and gives us a realistic version of that story. I've had on Joan Mellon, who is expert on the New Orleans aspect of the assassination, not the Oliver Stone version, but the real version. She actually knew Jim Garrison and interviewed more than 1,200 people to write her book, A Farewell to Justice. Okay. Now, I have had on Sherry Feaster, who is a CSI investigator and using modern forensic techniques has determined exactly where the shot came from that hit Kennedy in the head, and it is a surprise. It is one of those things that I have to personally reevaluate myself. Hint, there is no shot to the head from the grassy knoll. Okay, moving forward, I had John Barber on, who did that documentary on Jim Garrison called The Garrison Tapes. He's working on part 2 right now. Fascinating guy involved in Hollywood, actually was the creator of Real People as well. I would say that the JFK myths shows that I've done are also rather fascinating for dispelling a lot of this stuff in long form. There's been 5 of them so far, number 6 coming soon. Gail Nix Jackson, who is the granddaughter of Orville Nix. Orville Nix took one of the best films of the assassination and one of only 4 to capture the headshot. It is taken from the opposite side of the street of the Zapruder film. Her grandfather's film, she would like to see returned to the family because the original is missing. And she has at this point filed a lawsuit against the U.S. government about that. I also had Larry Hancock on to discuss various things in the intelligence agencies, what they mean and how to interpret them. His writing is voluminous. Most recently he put out a book called Shadow Warfare, as well as a book about the King assassination, which is something else I've done work on. Okay. Stu Wexler, another guy who's interesting. He was one of the first people to turn around and disprove from a statistical point of view the whole concept of identifying the bullets having come from the Mannlicher Carcano and stuff like that. Actually, I had him on to discuss the King assassination and some of the very real players that were involved there. Again, hint, even according to the United States government, a la the assassination, the House Select Committee on Assassination conclusion in 1979, the King was killed as a result of a conspiracy, as well as a court case in 1999 brought by the King family that revealed that, yes, indeed, Martin Luther King Jr. was in fact killed by a conspiracy which involved the government, the mafia, and other aspects of society coming together in a conspiracy. Okay, moving forward. Who else should I bring up that I've had on? Vince? Anybody else you can think of?
No, but I agree with Puzzle. Barry, you run on Duracell's.
I do my best to fit it in, brother. What can I say?
I do not have a complete list, but I did fill a page while you were talking. Like I said, so this was going to be my first project here of getting
And this is not what I do on my show either, right? Just so people know. I mean, it's not like I sit there and go on the Kennedy assassination. I talk about everything.
That's exactly right. That's a very good point to make because, once you get you titled as the JFK researcher, no matter the many, many hours that you have put into this. So I value your opinion on it.
Yeah, I may have a more educated opinion on this particular subject, but I mean, I talk about other political conspiracies, vaccinations, medical tyranny, plenty of, mocking and bashing both political alleged parties. I spent a lot of time on the Trump campaign and that clown car that pulled up on the GOP side of things recently. I'm no fan of Barry Soetoro, President Obama. I'm certainly no fan of Bubba Clinton, nor am I a fan of the Bush crime syndicate. So guess what? Lots of different things I talk about, not the least of which is, whistleblowers on stuff like Albert Graves, torture, weapons of mass destruction, the intelligence communities being out of control, the governments being overreaching and overbearing, our loss of liberties incrementally, viewing events, I'm on it. So not just Kennedy stuff, but I try and cover the gamut, and also, emerging current events. Like, for instance, Barry Prince, who is in your chat room right now, was part of the show on the shooting at Canadian Parliament that I did the day after, where I brought in people who were working in the area, different Canadians, to discuss the situation, stuff like that. So I do look at things outside of the United States as well.
Hey, I'll tell you what would be the perfect candidate. You could get Clinton, Bush with Trump's hair. Damn, now there you go. That's who everybody ought to vote for.
Throw them all in a blender and throw a vagina, and then you have. Oh, excuse me. I guess that's Hitlery. Maybe Governor Krispy Kreme. I'm not sure. Okay. So,
hey, Barry and I did some radio together yesterday. Hey, drop me that link, would you, where that podcast went to. And also, here's some addition. And let's see, we got 4 minutes. Real quick, I'll just mention this. Where's that? I think it went past me. It was. Anyway, so let's go with the bad list. I'm sorry. There it is. Johnny Roswell, the JFK shooter in the storm drain. JFK players and witnesses on WordPress. So, before we run out of time, though, let me run down the bad list. Run off some of the bad lists, and I'll see if I can.
Storm drain is on it. It's not the storm drain at the street level. If you look at the storm drain part that's over by the triple overpass, which is the railroad bridge, then you have a possibility. But if you're looking at that street level grade, you can't pull off the shot. End of story there. Moving on to the bad stuff that you have on your list, Vince.
I want yours. What about the shot that went through the sign or ricocheted off the sign, hit the curb, and went through his nose or something like that, and came back out the other nostril and went through his
they've been all over the place with these things. There is the possibility of a missed shot on the other side of Elm Street, opposite from where the grassy knoll is, so there may have been a shot fired from there, but it missed. That struck over by the manhole cover. You have the possibility of something striking the curb, which caused James Haig to be wounded, which was the third wounded man that day, a guy I used to speak to a lot who unfortunately passed away before I could bring him on the air. You have the possibility of other bullets being found. What they call the magic bullet, which is CE-399, was found on a stretcher. It turns out it wasn't Connolly's stretcher. It wasn't Kennedy's stretcher. Nobody knows where the hell that bullet came from, and that's from talking to people that were working at the hospital that day. You can't figure it out. So good luck on all those magic bullets. And we didn't even get to the strange trajectory of the one supposedly coming from the book depository. Now, moving on. Other bad stuff. Go ahead, Vince.
Look, I think we're going to run out of time. I think we did a pretty good job of covering stuff. It gives me a lot to. I've got to go back and take these notes. But a very good list, I think, and a good discussion. Before we run out of time, Chuck, tell us where you're at. You're new here, new member here at World Truth. Thanks for coming over, buddy. Walter is too. He's in chat. Barry, if you not made it over to World Truth, shame on you. Did you? So tell us where you're at, Chuck, and when you're at.
Okay, two things I would say. For the rest of 2015, you'll be able to find me Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at American Freedom Radio, broadcasting live from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Outside of that, you can find a conduit to just about anything I do on the internet at a place called Ochelli.com. And in case you don't know how to spell my last name, it's Ochelli, Ochelli.com. There's actually a members-only section over there, and like I said, any other place where I'm doing a broadcast, involved with other broadcasts, and also links to some of my friends are there on Ochelli.com. So that's everywhere where you can catch everything I'm doing. Even the YouTubes, doesn't matter, my blog, everything else is available through there.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on, Chuck. Hey, everybody listening, and Miss Girl, hey, welcome. And remember, liking is loving and sharing is caring, and connecting voices is what I do. Proud to be along here at World Truth, Real Liberty Media, side by side over at UCY.TV, and Chuck's got a lot of great connections. If you're on Facebook, find him there, Chuck Ochelli. And also, we'll be hoping he's going to be adding. That's it. Hey, we're out. We're done. We're going to continue broadcasting the second hour here just a little bit. And so now, hey, Flash, would you like to add in any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have one question. One question.
Right up.
Who financed the Kennedy assassination?
Who financed it? This is one of the great questions. I wish I had the answer.
Well, blame somebody and we'll agree, and that'll be law.
Yeah. Let me put it to you this way. It's the intelligence community that I believe financed and arranged for his murder, and everybody else you can think of was involved in the cover-up afterwards. That's the best conclusion I can hand you.
Yeah, it's pretty sad after all this time, isn't it?
And that's the saddest part. And I warn people about 9/11 when it comes to this, that don't spend a half century arguing with each other. Get to the tangible evidence and work it out. Because you know what? The 9/11 Commission learned from the Warren Commission by not putting out the supporting volumes of BS that was supporting their nonsensical conclusions. They gave you one volume of BS and just rammed it down your throat. So don't forget that when it comes to 9/11. The JFK assassination was where they learned not to disseminate their nonsense.
Hey, how's your day plan, Chuck? You got another hour. Would you like to do 9/11?
Vince, for you, anything, I would just have to check with Kim on this real quick to see that I'm available. But outside of that, I'm available for you. If I've got a moment, it's yours.
Well, if you stick around, you better ask the real boss. Hey, Frankie.
That's right. The 1.5-year-old boss that I have at home. He runs the house, actually, so we do have to check in with him. Mm-hmm. But let's see.
Alrighty. Well, we've got some good comments going on over here at Real Liberty Media. Thanks, everybody, for listening in.
And thanks, Vince, for involving me, man. I really appreciate you, and always have. And anybody who's listened to what I have to say, you know what? Do the research for yourself. Think for yourselves, always. Don't necessarily listen to some guy because he can say it real fast or real efficiently, even though I speak quickly. Don't listen to everything I say. I'd like to be proven wrong. So please do the research yourselves and find out for yourselves. Don't trust anybody who is supposedly in a position of authority, and I don't care who it is.
Hey, Chuck, I'm going to take this opportunity right now to put you to task and put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you, look, the great Hal Anthony. He is among, when we look back through the annals of the great voices, when this world is all said and done, Hal Anthony is going to be one of those names that right there, that voice in the wilderness. And he, of course, his broadcast originates here at World Truth, Real Liberty Media. We simulcast at UCY on Sundays. And yesterday, I took it upon myself to get another task underway for myself. So I'd ask that you put me in contact with your guy over there where you're broadcasting from. And I'd like to talk to him about getting how simulcast over there. And I'm going to be looking at some more networks. And this is that other part of me there that I think I do so well is networking. So I'm going to put my skills to test.
Yeah, no problem. I'll put you in touch with Danny at American Freedom Radio. I don't know if he'll carry a simulcast. He's looking for original material mostly that emanates from his network, but by all means, man, give it a shot. You never know what you might accomplish.
All right. Do you need to go? You want to take a break and
yeah, if I could just take a couple of minutes break and check in with Kim real quick and see.
Yeah, that's
and check with the real boss, as you said, my son. All right.
Right on. So, I wonder, did I get my? Do you remember if I got that short link when I first posted it? And, I don't know how you get that key, whatever the thing is there. Perhaps I can be taught. Them old dogs. So, Flash, how's your day way over there in the winter wonderland?
Comfortable. Why?
Ouch. Oh, I bumped my elbow.
How's your day in paradise going there, Captain Quirk?
It is wunderbar.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds strange.
Wonderful. Except for I hit my elbow. That was wonderful.
See, I have one question to ask about the whole hour, and I can't get an answer about it. Just goes to
who paid for it?
Yeah, that's all I want to know. Who paid the bill for that? That was one big deal. Who paid for it?
That goes back to the.
Well, see, here's the thing, man. I would love to answer that question, but I require something called tangible evidence. And I have never seen tangible evidence showing me a money trail to or from anybody. And this is one of the things that's in support of, in a way, of the Oswald digital loan thing. There's never been tangible evidence of anybody paying for it. There's been a lot of speculation. There's been this discussion about E. Howard Hunt handing out money and stuff like that. But listen, if you buy E. Howard Hunt's story, I got plenty of properties to sell you on a couple of different planets.
Well, then be simple about it. Who made the most money in the closest relative time after the assassination? Who profited the most on the surface?
Oh, well,
the military.
The military.
Yeah, the military.
And everybody. Yeah, and everybody involved in the military-industrial complex, a company like Kellogg Brown and Root made plenty of money. They later on morphed into something we call Halliburton. Okay, and doing things like draining Cam Bay over there in Vietnam and all the other wonderful support things they do for the military. Those are the people that made the money right away. Plenty of contractors like Bell Helicopter. It's endless. There's an endless list of military-industrial complex people that made their fortunes because Kennedy's policies were reversed by his death.
So I guess it would be damn near impossible to figure out who the top 10 people are that made the most out of all this, right? And what a coincidence that must have been to have them make that money.
Yeah, but that's the problem is when you're looking at it, it's almost like saying, well, who really profits from genetically modified organisms? Well, you could say Monsanto, but how many corporations are under the Monsanto umbrella, right?
The world was a lot smaller back then. No. I don't agree with all that. So.
Yeah, but no, not really.
Oh, yeah.
Not really. The world was smaller as far as communication went, but when it comes to the back rooms and the elites being the very limited number of people that they are still to this day.
That's what I'm saying.
Insane.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And all this goes back before where we're talking about and onward past 9/11. It's been this same little control structure, the good old boy club, the insiders. There's many different theories, of course, on who they are, and they, in my opinion, there's many different names and faces that they wear.
Well, here, I'll give you for instance, Vincent, here's an interesting traceable thing that you can go from World War II to 9/11 in, 3-4 easy strokes. Who was benefiting from the fact that we got introduced into WW2? Not only from the American angle of the military-industrial complex and all the other industrialists who were, working in industries like fuel and et cetera, who's a traceable name that goes from there all the way to today? Well, let's start with Prescott Bush. The fact that he benefited, from, it was called the Task Force Trading with the Enemies Act, was actually indicted, was part of the banking system. This guy leads to, well, guess who Prescott Bush is? Well, he's the father of George H.W. Bush, who, basically had 12 years to run the White House and 1 year to run the CIA and plenty of years to be a lackey, as far as being a corporate paper pusher for the agency and facilitate all kinds of coups and murders and genocides across the planet, provably. Right, and then we have his son taking over after they put a family friend in there for 8 years, and that would be Bubba Clinton. Hey, his son comes in, and what does he give us but the 9/11 explosion and the bonanza, the feeding frenzy that once again fueled the military-industrial complex and the drug trade. Both things are commonalities throughout. in Afghanistan, in Iraq, et cetera, et cetera. We have the Bush crime syndicate going from World War II to now.
You know what?
The whole way through.
If you go back even to the ancestors of Prescott Bush, you take that all the way back into the opium trade. It's fast forward to me in Arkansas. It's the same game, you know.
Yeah, except it was cocaine in Arkansas, but, just because they had to change things up after a while, they lost access to the Golden Triangle in Vietnam. And meanwhile, what do we have? An explosion of heroin on the streets of America during the time we were in Vietnam, and the heroin coming back from Afghanistan now.
Yeah, with the heroin, see, when you make a big supply of OxyContin available, and then constrict that, those opiate addicted people are going to go for that heroin. So I think was part of the ploy as well.
Of course. And who benefited off of the methadone clinics? Well, that would be the Rockefellers. And so you want to tie things together, you could use drugs to tie this all together if you like. All right? I mean, it's just that simple. You can use drugs in the bushes. You can tie together, 60, 70 years worth of criminal activity that was tied to war profiteering, the profiteering off the misery of individuals involved in the drug trade, et cetera, all the way throughout. And you can tie it to one family name, and that's Bush, if you like. If you want to come up with somebody whose entire family needs to be given the perp walk privilege, there you go. And meanwhile, we got this guy Jeb, who I swear to you right now is going to be your POTUS in 2016. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, I don't care that he's behind in the polls. I don't care that Trump is trending. He's going to collapse of his own weight. And who's going to emerge but Jeb to say, hey, I'm the real presidential candidate, and I don't even care about the noise that Rubio's making right now.
That's been my opinion from the very beginning, that Jeb Bush is the next president.
I was hoping for an Obama-Clinton third term.
Nice. Well,
Uncle
that
Joe's
would make
boring.
A lot of people happy.
Yeah, Uncle Joe's is boring. They took him off the microphone.
Say that again.
Said, Uncle Joe Biden, he's a drag. They took him off the microphone about 2 years ago. We don't even hear anything from him anymore. So I was thinking maybe an Obama-Clinton ticket would get us going again.
Yeah, Biden forgets about his script every once in a while, so he's a little dangerous.
I haven't heard anything from Biden in 2 years.
He made a little noise a couple of months ago, talking about the possibility of him running and all this other stuff. They kind of floated it out there, and then of course that very quietly disappeared because nobody gave a damn. That's what it came down to.
Yeah, right. Well, it won't matter anyway. They're not even real elections.
No, they're all.
Can't believe people buy into this crap anymore.
You and me both.
Well, they still do. I don't understand it. Wish somebody would explain it to me. Why voting is such a great, wonderful thing to do. What does it do?
Hey guys, let me hand the mic to you two fellas for a minute, and I'm going to step out for a couple.
He has a delivery company that's not going to air it this time. Oh yeah, the very first show we did, he has a delivery of rocks or something, dump a truckload out in front of his house.
Nice.
While he's on air. Yeah.
When I worked with Vince on his show, What Matters Worldwide, this would happen all the time. He would tell me, I'll be gone for a minute, and then he'd be gone for the rest of his show, and I'd be left to run it. I hope that's not the case today, people.
He does that. Somebody opened the cage door again.
Yeah, there we go. But, no, I mean, if you think about it, though, what do you think about tracing all of it right into the Bush crime syndicate? I mean, there's an answer for you if you like it, but I still don't have a plausible, here I can show you canceled checks, I can show you money transfers from the Bushes, but look, they benefit all the way through from, the rise of the Third Reich on. And that's easy to prove. Can you say that they were profiting before that? Sure. But there's one crime family I can point to. Okay, that's the one that comes to the top of my head. Now, do I put a gun in George H.W. Bush's hands in Dealey Plaza? No. Okay, let's not be silly. You're going to hire, if you need somebody shot, you're going to hire somebody who knows how to handle a gun, And let me tell you, George H.W. Bush is not a sharpshooter. Okay? But outside of that, you want to look at Kimono, who benefits. Well, the Bushes have been benefiting off of all of our misery now for, 2, 3 generations, minimally. So there you go. If you want to go easy, the more difficult task would be to come up with that real provable line of, that chain of evidence that indisputably shows a financier and a penningmaster and individuals receiving money. Think about it in terms of proving it in a criminal court. Do you have the evidence to show, A had money, it went to B, and landed in C's lap for C's cooperation in said effort? Therefore, the reconstruction of a contract, whether it be verbal or written, right? Can you do that? Can anybody do that? Not that I have seen my satisfaction, that's for certain. And look, I welcome anybody who thinks they have proof of it to bring it to me. I'd love to see it.
Well, what do you qualify as proof of anything in this life now? A video?
Well, not necessarily a video.
A document, and then then you get a document that has to be proved it's original by somebody else, and it's hopeless. Everybody's got their price now, and you can't find the truth out about what time it is.
Well, isn't that the case?
Without a video, yeah. And now people are being trained to only respond to the proof of a camera. If a camera didn't capture it, it never happened.
Right, which is also ludicrous. But what I look for is multiple levels of independent corroboration. That's what I've always searched for.
What difference does it make? We all know who's guilty, and still not enough people will step up and take these pricks out of power. Just a bunch of whiners. We just complain and snivel, but there's no group going to stop it.
Well, is there a group that's going to stop it? There's lots of ways to stop it. Stop consenting to the content. I've thought that one through too.
It's virtually impossible to survive in life today in America, where I live, without some form of income. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter. You cannot do it without one. And society puts these unbelievable barriers between a poor man and money. So you're doomed to what? $30,000 a year? What's that going to buy you? Nothing. You just end up in debt for the rest of your life. And they can't see that all this is debt slavery. And the people that don't suffer debt slavery that keep us here, why would they give that up to be one of us? That would be stupid.
Well, here's the thing. The debt slavery thing is an illusion which has been placed on us, right? The possibilities that you can exist outside of the system are there. It just takes a bit of innovative thinking.
Yeah, and you got to be willing to be poor.
I'm a work in progress, to be honest with you. Personally, myself, I'm a work in progress. I mean, I've stepped outside of the banking system. I've stepped outside of a lot of things, but I still require internet, so I have to contract with a corporate entity to pull that off.
Yep.
I still require money to do my broadcasts and to fight the fight that I do because, look, computers cost money, internet costs money, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, yeah, there's a need for income, but there's also the concept that it doesn't necessarily have to be applied to this grant structure that has to be taxed and everything else. And there's various ways to stop giving your consent by non-participation. A lot of people tell me that's impossible to avoid having your child vaccinated. And, if you would have asked me that a decade and a half ago, I would have agreed with them. But at this point in time, I have a 1.5-year-old who's perfectly healthy, hasn't been vaccinated. Can I send him to public schools? No. But you know what? I don't want to.
Right.
I'm going to go around that in every single way that I can. I'm trying to deal with things legally as best I can. Sort of play by their rules by opting out of as much as I can. And, look, I'm waiting for somebody to come along and give up the great program that will get us all out of this. But then again, we may not have a choice about it. It might all just collapse anyway, as is apt to do. Remember, our monetary system hasn't existed that long. Relatively speaking, it's only been, 150 years or 200 years where we've been under a similar monetary system, and realistically only 102 years that we've been under the Federal Reserve. All of these things run their course, and when it comes time for it to collapse, instead of accepting the new provided, solution to the problem and the reaction, perhaps we'll find the collective courage to go in an innovative direction and do it ourselves. I don't know what the answer to that is. That is one of those things that I'm constantly exploring and pondering myself. And, that's the truth, man. If I don't know the answer to a question, I'll tell you I don't know.
I don't know anything.
I don't have the answer.
I just have opinions about stuff based on what I see and how I feel about what I see. But I don't buy all this fact and truth and, well, it was written in a book, because any argument you can give me, I can find equal amounts of pro and con on the internet to prove or to disprove anything you say. Doesn't matter what it is. So right now, we're in a world where the information is being used against a lot of people.
Well, absolutely. But, when you're providing the counter-argument to some of the things that somebody is saying, you have to look at which one, A, makes the most logical sense, and B, which one can be verifiable by you independently or by others independently. Can you obtain the same information? Can you gain the same observations that the speaker is presenting to you? I mean, critical thought is really a dead art among people, and they don't look at things realistically. I mean, look, man, if you close your eyes and you refuse to accept that there is a wall in front of you and you walk forward, you're still going to hit the damn wall, because after a while there are certain, indisputable ideas that can be verifiable. And you know what? If you don't want to believe that I'm telling you there's a wall in front of you because you got your eyes closed, you can walk into it if you like and find out for yourself. That's where I stand on this kind of thing when it comes to facts and what is truth and things like that. And that's why I consider what I do and what people that I respect, what I consider they do is more like honest media as opposed to truth media or real media or any of these other terms. I call it honest media because it's our best honest effort to present to you what it is we know and what it is you can learn on your own if you choose to.
Yeah, you said 10 years ago that you had a different opinion about vaccines than you have now.
Sure did.
Okay.
And you know
All
why?
right. Well, of course I know why. I've been, of course I know what you know. But what I'm concerned about is that just because you tell somebody they have been lied to, and you show them this is proof you've been lied to, these things will damage your body, they've got a whole lifetime of, well, the doctor told me to, behind them, fighting your information. So I don't think that everybody's geared to accept the truth about life, the way life really is, as opposed they're geared to accept the lies that they get shoved down their throat every day until they really do believe them. They really do.
No, I got you. But let me present you an idea, okay? Just an idea. I'm not presenting it to you as absolute fact, but an idea based on my observations.
Especially not me, yeah.
And I'd like to take away some of that pessimism that I hear in your voice about trying to get people to be aware.
There's no way. Yeah, it's no way. It's impossible.
Well, let me just present something to you. If you combine the individuals who understand and focus on stuff like chemtrails, and you combine them with the people that understand that there's something wrong with the vaccination program, and you combine them together with those that understand that there's definitely something wrong with what I would call overreaching government tyranny at this point across the planet, if you combine all these people together, and you were actually able to get them chipping at the greater machine all together, okay, coming at it from all their different angles, you would have a wholly different situation, and it really represents a hell of a lot more than the 3% or 5% that people like to talk about in the alleged movement, which there really isn't a movement, but there could be. Okay, if you combine all those people together, you have a much more significant minority than you might imagine. And that's why I like talking to people like Roger Landry, who right now is working on something called the American Unity and Freedom Project, which is about trying to bring these different sides of the equation together to fight this integrated, greater corporate structure, which, to my estimation, is doing the damage, on the ground level all across the planet right now.
And how many people is it going to take so this thing can, whatever you begin? I don't know. I don't see it happening.
Hey guys, I made it back out. The beer truck was here with the delivery, so not really, just kidding. Hey.
Well,
I had to mute so you can hear the beeping sound. Listen, talking about the machine, the analogy I like is where can we withdraw? Because we don't want to try to implode the machine. That's, in the full implosion, is revolution, blood and street. It's already, all this is being used against us and will be used against us. So the way I like to look at what we could do to make that change is withdraw where we can. If we can withdraw our input, that which comes from us, that goes into this machine, everything, our blood, sweat, and tears, and we're forced into it. But withdraw where you can, and there's a lot of ways withdrawing from the system. First of all, just allowing them to continual poisoning of you, whether it be through fluoridated water, the television, your foods, and GMOs. So withdraw where you can. You have to exist in the system. At some point, they're like I said, we're so bound to it, and it's been so instrumental. At one point, not so long ago in history, a person could go out and live in the wilds, or go to lands yet unknown and conquer them from themselves, right? And producing from the ground. Now, if a person was, it can be done. But there's a lot of restrictions that would come against you in that which is used, the weapons in this war that is used against us.
So you missed out on part of the earlier conversation we were having about this. That was exactly what we covered to start with, and we were going into the different possibilities and the amount of people that are actually awake. And I totally forgot the question you just asked, Flesh, and we were in the middle of that right there, but yeah, Vince, we already went through this, and I'm telling you, this is one of those things that is exactly why the discussion needs to continue. But what was that question you were asking? Because I was really fascinated by your approach to this.
Me or him? I got lost in all that.
I'm sorry.
Well, I've got a lot of things on my mind. For example, there's millions of us on computers, blah, 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 blah. But out of the people that are on computers, the people that need to know the stuff that we have to tell them don't have computers. All right? There's a lot more of them than there is of us. Who's going to tell them? What about the guy that can't read?
There are ways of doing this. There are activists that are working, like I said, in all these different directions. There are people who are putting together, public presentations on a lot of these different issues. It's really just a matter of unifying them. If you can get the chemtrail people on the same page as the GMO people, on the same page as the vaccination people, on the same page as the political and social tyranny people, on the same page as, and I count myself in this category, as the anti-intelligence community people, et cetera, et cetera. You can do many different things that don't necessarily have to be relegated to simply doing a podcast, a radio show. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can start on a local level by having conversations with your neighbors to begin with. And the thing is, there are people doing this already. It's just a matter of turning them all against what is really one centralized enemy and becoming a centralized opposition. not necessarily having to buy everybody's conclusions, but realizing that we're all fighting the very same enemy, which to me is the fascist corporatist structure that we find ourselves confronted with in this country and, in fact, globally. Okay? That's the bottom line there, and like I said, people are making efforts, and it's not going to be something that's readily available that we can, define in 10 minutes here today, because it's going to require some innovation as well. You're very right. There are individuals that don't have the internet, that don't have access to stuff like this, that also need to be educated, and we shouldn't leave anybody behind. It's time to really ring the bell in the town squares once again. And first, you better figure out where the town square is. And second, you better figure out what bell the people are going to pay attention to. And I think if we work together more than fighting with one another, we will get there. And we'll be able to get at the truth of the historical realities. We'll be able to get at the truth of exactly how we're being deceived, manipulated, and misused. And how, the American empire that has gone across the planet in a military sense, in a corporatist sense, and the stateless entities that are the banking industry and everything else are all working in conjunction, and none of them working on your or my behalf. And what do they have in their pockets but every single representative that we allegedly believe we have on our side? So it's going to be time for some innovation here. And it's not going to come, out of the barrel of a gun, and it's not going to come by sitting there and saying kumbaya or holding up signs in front of the Federal Reserve buildings or standing there with a megaphone like certain panic attack-inducing people like to do. It's going to come from something else.
What?
And
what's something else? What?
That's what's got to emerge from all these conversations, my friend. That's where the productivity
Okay,
has to
well,
come in.
that is exactly why this fucking thing is never going to end, because there is an answer. I already know what it is. I can prove it.
What is it then?
Stop lying, stop killing people, and grow hemp like you know what you're doing. And inside of 6 months, you'd see physical change. Immediate change from just being honest and not lying, because everything we do is based on lies. All of it. Lies, greed, and fucking ownership, and all these fucking shared illusions that they teach us to have, because kids don't behave that way until they're forced to behave that way in school.
Okay, so how are you going to incite that on a mass scale?
Be honest. See, life is based on the other guy's trying to fuck you, so protect yourself from him. See, so you're already losing from the minute you play. When you got lawyers and laws involved, you're already fucked. So you're doing something that's too big, that can't be managed, that can be infiltrated or corrupted or stolen from, then fucking don't do it. But no, we live amongst a bunch of greedy cocksuckers that want a big slice of the pie so that other people don't get any pie. It's a selfish, ignorant fucking way to live. And if you watch little children, they share things together. And then as they grow up, they start killing each other to own the things they once shared. And it's our society that is behind it. And government has fuck all to do with it. Government is just an implementation of what the fucking thing's told to do. We get told what to do every day in a million fucking ways, and it's so subtle that for some people, they don't even believe they're being instructed on what to do. They think they're fucking free.
Well, that's funny because it sounds very much like what I said about stop participating.
It's easy to say, but Charles, it's easy to say that. I've tried and tried and tried. There's no way to survive a comfortable life without participating at some level. It's impossible. You've got to use their documents. You've got to, something comes and you've got to play their fucking game. Or live on a mountaintop and, fight grizzly bears.
Well,
and they made that illegal.
Unless you can incite a significant number of individuals to point themselves in the same direction. And I've got no objection to growing hemp. I think that that's one of the cures for a lot of ills on the planet. And in fact, forget hemp. I'll tell you that cannabis in general is something that has no reasonable reason of being outlawed, restricted, controlled. This is nonsense. In fact,
to control.
It seems to me as though it's a matter of survival for the human species that we need to get back to utilizing that plant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, what happened is we went and got educated, and people wrote books, and people got power, and they started with weapons, and we'll make laws, and they got organized, and that's the problem. The answer is not repeating the mistake. The answer is small fucking communities where everybody fucking knows everybody, and you know somebody passing through town, blah, blah, blah. These big cities are just, they're rat traps, and they've done experiments with laboratory mice and came up with the same fucking results as overpopulating a city and depriving it of the basic necessities it needs to survive. Those are the results you get. They did it on purpose. Right. They're trying to talk people out of the country to live in these fucking cities.
But no matter where you are, I mean, the fact is, I said earlier, people need to get back to interacting with their neighbors. People need to get back to interacting with each other.
Well, they're spraying Roundup on their fucking weeds. They don't have the ability anymore to understand. It's all about hoarding and greeting and I'm going to survive. And that mentality is huge. But the mentality of, well, if my neighborhood goes, the neighborhood will be okay. It isn't like that. It's my house and my property and my guns and my vitamin C. People don't give two flying fucks about each other anymore. And when you do, the wolf pack comes to attack you for it, put you back in your place, get you pissed off about something, so you'll be just as big a dick as they are. And it works. It works on all of us. And that's what we have to get around. Not it's the behavior. It's the believing the lies. If you didn't believe it, you wouldn't live. See, there you go. They've got the majority of the people already because they believe in it. They live for it. Celebrity, 800,000 people for a baseball game celebration. Didn't change a fucking thing that day. How disappointing is that?
Well, my friend, here's the thing.
That's my argument.
If you want to surrender to the overwhelming majority, you can do that. If you want to give in to the system, you can do that. If you want to say there's no escape, that's fine. But, I don't believe that. I think that if we speak to people long enough, hard enough, if we get the message out there well enough, then what will happen is individuals will change their own perceptions, and that will create a collective change without, telling people what to think, but actually encouraging them to do so.
Wow.
And that's the best they can do.
Yeah, but laws. People have that law thing. Oh, laws are good for you, and they've taken law and just perverted it into this monster that needs to be buried in a hole and forgotten. But they're so tied to it because they depend on it. Society is a dependency, and it's hard to make people understand that being independent does not mean you stand alone completely. I mean, you can still be alone, but be amongst others. And I think societies have been lied to and bullshitted and drugged and poisoned for so long that the damage that's been done is impossible to undo. So to get somebody's a new person hearing the stuff that we know is fact, for them to hear it is like trying to convince me there is a God. I'm not going to listen. So what is the common ground where we approach somebody that believes the system is there for them, but finds out somehow, hey, this is bullshit, now they want to know the truth? Where do you start?
Well, I don't know. I've brought new people into my audience before that had no idea that they had an idea that something was wrong, but they had no idea they were being lied to. And look, they're evolving. Mm-hmm. And evolution is not something that happens, in the blink of an eye for us. It happens in the blink of an eye, relatively speaking, but it doesn't happen like that for us as individuals, right? So it's going to take some patience, it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some work, and this is part of it, man. I hate the idea that you sound like, well, there's no way to fight it because there's so many that are just so damaged. You know what? Over time, there's one thing that I bet you wouldn't argue with me about, and that is that over time, if you allow nature to take its course, and you encourage and nourish things that are naturally occurring around you, what happens is it cleanses itself. If you stop poisoning it and you simply nurture it, over time,
this system that we have works the same way you're talking, but they work on the negative against us in 10 and 20-year periods. And they come out, and at the end of it, they just breed it into the kids in school. They force you to put your kids in school. They force this shit down these kids' throats, and the next generation is worse off than the one before it. Congratulations, they did their job. What a joke.
In a lot of ways, I hear that, but I'm also hearing very much younger people emerging now who know that there's something wrong. They don't have the problem of racial division like they used to. Like in my generation, there was definitely very clear-cut racial lines. There was very much a need to promote aggression against one another in order to create like a sort of survival of the fittest mentality, right? And they've gotten past that. Now, have they completely evolved in a way that I would be absolutely proud of? No. Because they've convoluted a lot of things, and like sexuality is one of those things I speak about a lot, which I think has been completely diluted and distorted, and has gotten them away from being the human beings that they actually are, and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's been progress, and there's been progress because we have acted in a way and spoken in a way so that that is the example left behind. And more of us are emerging all the time. Don't believe the rhetoric that there's only this little tiny population and that's all there is. If that's the case, man, explore a little more. You will find there are plenty of people that know something's wrong and are waiting for the answers. That even the partial answers that stuff like this show and other shows will provide to them if given the chance. I'm sorry, I can't be as pessimistic as some other people. There are others out there that think the only way we're going to solve this is with bloodshed and guns, and I'm not going for that either.
Yeah, they want that.
I'm not going for armed revolution. No. I'm telling you that it's going to be the kind of thing where you got to encourage people to change themselves, because if they do that, then the whole of the picture will change by default.
How? Why don't they just boycott Coke for a week? Because they're addicted to the shit and they can't put them down.
Yeah, but who's made the effort to really do that?
Me.
To boycott Coke?
Yep.
Tell you what. Talk to guys like me who have a voice, have an audience. Put us all together into a group somehow, and tell us all that you're coordinating this, because I never heard of it.
I don't support Coca-Cola. I don't buy their product.
Well, no problem, but organize a simple say no to Coke.
Right. But see, that's what I mean. There's so much information. I mean, all the time about the poisons in this and the bad stuff in that. But there's so few people have the means to get the information to them. So, and I'm living in Denmark. I don't speak Danish, and even if I did, these people, they're so laid back and shit. I like it here, so I don't want to change Denmark. I like Denmark just the way it is. Doesn't bother me a bit. But I don't want to move back to North Carolina or LA or any other place I lived back in the States at all.
I'm sitting in North Carolina as we speak and not happy about it, brother.
Where you at? I was in I was down by Camp Lejeune, about 5 miles from the camp for 10 years.
I'm in the eastern part, closest major place.
Chattanooga. Greenville. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. It's been a while. Where the estate's at, right?
Yeah, over by there where the
Biltmore Estate.
Not far from the university and all that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I haven't been in North Carolina for about a little over 4 years, and I don't know the lifestyle that I've tripped into over here everything that I've been told is exactly the opposite of how I live here. These people, the people are nice, they're friendly-ish. There's no police in the city. There's about 12,000 population with no cops.
Well, they've had a longer history to learn from their mistakes, and there you go. There is evidence of the evolution. You have a lower stress level over there that I've heard about. I've been to certain parts of Europe, and you can see a greater maturity in certain populations based on the fact that they've had the time to do so. You know, this experiment that we call the United States of America has not existed long enough to have gone through all of the steps that some of those other places have.
Yeah, that's just.
I'm envious of you living in Denmark right now.
I'm sorry about that, but I think it's just a lot of excuses that they put on forced bullshit and mistakes that were planned. Just like the Federal Reserve Bank, that was no accident. That thing was done exactly the way it was supposed to be done, and it lasted this long, and nobody can stop it because nobody wants it stopped. Only poor people want something like that stopped. Why would rich people care about how they fucking run it? As long as they have their money, they don't care. So
and when it implodes, we all pay for it.
It's an illusion in the first place. It never will implode. The way you beat them is stop fucking buying their shit. That's how you do it.
It's the third centralized bank in America's history. It will inevitably collapse, just like the other two did, one way or another. Whether there's a legal remedy for it, or it simply falls of its own weight, one way or another, it'll go away. The problem is that they'll introduce yet another version of it, as they already have twice before. So you gotta understand your history to not repeat the mistakes. I mean,
well, are you saying that the people that are doing the stupid, fucked up shit they're doing today aren't aware of their own history? I disagree with that. I think it's a con job on us as an excuse to keep fucking bombing this and blowing up that.
They're fully aware of their history, but they've succeeded so far.
So what do you mean by learn from you? They're bullshitting you. There is no example to learn from. It's a clusterfuck on the people. The only people that suffer are the poor. Think about it. Who else suffers?
Who else suffers?
Yeah.
You know what? Suffering is relevant. What I'm telling you is that, they've learned from their mistakes. They've upped their game over time. And we are the ones who are responsible. Those that are the poor, those that are the affected ones, are completely responsible for this system as it stands, because we have consented.
What about the voters and the law writers? Aren't they responsible too?
Sure, the entire legal profession. In fact, if you take a look at the root word for attorney, in reality, guess what? It's the same thing as the word Satan, in fact. And truthfully, Satanists are lawyers, if you want to get right down to the etymology of the language.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Talk about the great satanic. Well, literally, even if you look at the Hebrew word for lawyer, it's something that sounds like Grand Satan. That is literally the root word for lawyer. So look around you, understand what it is you're being told. It's not really all that hidden. It's right there in the language. It's right there in the operations. And anytime you want to stop consenting, go right ahead. Stop contracting. Stop consenting. And encourage everyone you know to do the same.
I can't.
You can't? Okay. Well, you know
There's
what?
No way.
I'm going to keep working on it as best I can, brother.
But I can't speak to him. There's no way. I can't. I've tried. This language is too. I'm too. I don't know. I'm just trying it too late. I can't learn it. So, but what I have been able to do is learn how to read some of it, so I can find my way around. And a lot of the symbolism is the same here as it is in the States. Like a stop sign, it seems to be universal. You know that 8-sided sign. So what it says is kind of immaterial, right? Like a flag. You know, a flag means something. So what you have to do is go to the source and go, well, what does this flag represent? And then you'll find, hey, this represents blah, blah, blah. And when you do these things, you find out stuff that people don't really believe when you tell them that you found them out.
Yeah, I know. Like, for instance, just taking a look at the American flag, why are all the stars five-sided, all that wonderful stuff.
Yeah, it means something, but it means something in flag talk, in representation, in symbolism. But just to look at it, it's a flag. It's got gold fringe. Why? Why do you have a gold-fringed American flag?
And why do two pillars sit in our Congress? Same stuff. Yeah, I get
exactly. But and more people need to have this explained to them. And you can put links up on Facebook or World Truth or whatever your site is, and people will argue about it being real or not. They will.
Sure, they will.
Yeah, there you go. So. You're fighting.
What's going to come up in the States very soon is what they call Christmas, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, an interesting thing happens during Christmas. There's this figure they call Santa Claus, which people think is an innocuous, almost non-secular representation of something. If you took somebody from ancient Babylonian days and you brought them here today and showed them Santa Claus, they would laugh at us and tell us that they fully understand what we're doing. Because they used to have this really nice heated red guy in the center of town square where they used to throw children on his lap and roast them alive while they screamed during about this time of year. And that's actually what they call Molech. It's not a giant owl. Okay, so welcome to the world we live in. The manipulation has been here a very long time.
Yeah,
and you know what? It is all in the symbols. It is all in the representations out there.
Right.
From your religions to your historical allegations on down.
Yeah.
So, you want to learn the truth? Examine it for yourselves, like I say. And just the first step, to me, is to get people to think and try and encourage as many people as you can to tell their friends to think and become the residual ripple effect. If you've given up on that, brother, that's your right.
Long time
that's
ago.
your right.
Sure.
But you know what? I'm not gonna.
Well, no,
I'm going to keep doing it.
But I don't have any expectations of you either. I don't expect myself to do nothing, then I don't expect you to do nothing. And life goes on with or without my expectations of what it's going to give me. And, I still got a good life. So, wow.
Exactly. Well, listen, if you're happy, cool.
Yeah,
you don't sound happy, man.
Well,
I feel badly.
My country dropped to the shithole it is in 4 years. 4 years ago, I was driving a car in North Carolina to go visit somebody. And here I am now, and they've got checkpoints for illegal immigrants and road stops to check to see if you've been inoculated. And I don't know what's bullshit and what ain't bullshit, but it doesn't look free anymore.
Well, that's because none of it ever was.
Well, I left you guys for 4 years, and this is what you did, huh?
Well, you know what it is? It hasn't changed that much in the past 4 years. It's just that you got a chance to take a step back and examine it from an objective standpoint. And that is what everyone needs to do, no matter where they're physically sitting.
Big? How do you make a judgment on that country? Because you can find anything you want from anywhere in the world in America.
Because the entire system is based on a fiction to begin with.
Well, I know, and you know, and yeah, it's a hard, like Hal was so relaxed this week. It was great to hear him. He has a much better way of explaining legal things. And he takes people, to the beginning of the problem to find out how to solve it. So what I've been trying to figure out over the years by listening and yakking is what is the common ground that we all stand on together as, how these reference butt nuggets are about, I want proof, I got to see it. Well, what do you show somebody that's already telling you you're full of shit? Because that's their job. That's exactly what they're supposed to say. And if they don't tell you that, then they're just playing with you and they're one of us already. It's just a different amount of experience behind it. Some people are just more experienced at knowing the lies than other people. It's not aware, it's not awake. It's just you knew longer ago than somebody else. That's your benefit from it, Charles. The new guy, he found out last month, and he's like way behind you because he's got so much catching up to do. Simple.
Right, but let's create let's create as many new guys as we can.
Yeah, right. So how do you convince somebody that the core of everything that they believe is based on bald-faced bullshit, made up crap? And we've all been fucked ever since the day we were born, told we weren't, but were. And then, of course, when you're a grown-up, you find out, hey, they fucked me pretty good.
Well, you know what I do first in a situation like that, if I've got one person to deal with, is I ask them what it is they accept as truth. And there is no end to what I can usually provide them to show them that there are conflicts in their beliefs. It's that simple. I mean, look, make an assertion. Make one of these assertions,
right.
And I'll try to give you for example.
Right, but there's so many. That's what I mean. There's so many groups to join where they've got us split in groups too, so that we can't. That's the whole point of this. For example, because I'm not going to give an opinion, I'm just using it for an example. Abortion will bring the beast out of almost anybody on an internet site. And in my opinion on this is, unless it involves you, why are you wasting your time talking about it? So I thought it through and came up with these divisive, argumentative things are specifically designed so that we will never make enough number to go against the machine. They knew we were coming. They wrote about it. Woodrow Wilson wrote about it 100 and something years ago. So, yeah, we're not a surprise to anybody, nor are we a threat, but we're smart enough to survive. And there's a lot of people that aren't. They're not going to make it.
I got you, but let me attack the abortion thing for a second, right?
Yeah, all right.
Here it is. If you stop having the argument and you state that this is not the essential problem, this is not what is killing us all, this is not the immediate problem. It may be a problem depending on your point of view, and I'm not going to stop on that, or I'm not going to encourage it either way.
Yeah, I didn't
How about if we put... Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't give a point. I was just using it as an example of something that gets people's attention, and it's designed
and I'm giving you
so
the
we'll
example,
fight about
the
it.
answer.
Yeah, but we're designed to. It's made up to fight about it. That's the point of it. There's no answer is going to ever come from it. It's just to keep us busy doing something that's not productive. Under the illusion that you'll solve it someday. No, that's bullshit.
Well, that's another point of consent, though. You let it go because your participation in it is precisely what you said. A waste of time. It's not going to fill your bellies. It's not going to make the world a better place. Put it aside and let's try and get down to what really needs to be done. That's it. Prioritize. And you're right all the way around about this issue, and yet people have been trained to respond to it like a monkey hitting a feeding bar.
Right.
That's the way it is. Yeah.
How do you break through that? Sorry, go ahead.
People. That's it, exactly. Hey, we're coming up to the end of the hour, and I'd like to remind everybody that we're running a special edition all week, noon Central, that's 1 o'clock Eastern time, not 11. Oh boy, I'm backwards already. So anyways, hope you guys will join us. I think Ron Stevens, I'm waiting for confirmation for tomorrow. I've got Earth Defense Force. I'm Barry Prince on Thursday. Friday, I'm looking for Chuck Horton from Double Cross Radio. The title is going to be Exiled, and that's going to be looking at the expatriation. Now, he has a friend. I'm hoping he's going to be able to pull him in that knows a lot on the laws of that, and saying that it is now becoming harder and harder to be able to exit the U.S. Passport laws are going to be changed next year, so hopefully this will all run smooth. Like I said, I'm awaiting a couple of confirmations on through the week here and a couple of connections, and it'll be probably the last minute before everything falls in place. It seems that it always does. Anyways, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Charles Ochelli, the Ochelli Effect. Thank you, Flash, and thank you, everybody, for listening. This is World Truth for Real Liberty Media, and hey, side by side over there, howdyoucy.tv. Support the broadcasters and the networks where you can. The words of Hal Anthony. Yes, thank you, Grammy Mary. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Jules. And thank you again, listeners. We gone any minute now. Love and peace. Say goodbye, Gracie.
Goodbye, Grace.
I don't know.
You don't know.